Guys, in this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to try to answer a question that came up in a live chat that I did the other night on CCT. And if you guys follow my channel, sometimes I don't have a set schedule for live chats yet, but eventually I'll get there. And basically what the question was how to read through and understand some of the logic in CCT. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. And what you see in front of you is a VAV that is in one of our buildings. I'm actually commissioned in to the VAV, and we are looking at this live. We are looking at the data live. Everything that you see here is the actual values in that VAV. And we're going to start by talking through just how this functions. And we will begin with an output. Now, you guys, if you're familiar with the VAV, you know that one of the things they do is the output of the damper, the flow for a airflow into a room. And that's what we're going to look at. We're going to start there. And you see here on the right-hand side of the screen that I have my damper here, and it's currently at 44% as far as its position. Now, what is it that affects that? That's what we're going to try to answer that. Or how do you look at this programming and understand how CCT is laid out? And I know that it takes a little bit to do that, but there's a couple of things that I want you to pay attention to. The first thing is this is the physical output. This is what is tied to that actuator. I mean, of course, it's an integrated actuator. But this is that output. That's our final output. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm actually going to select show involvement. And what this does is it highlights every single one of these logic blocks that are affecting this output in one way or another. That is part of the way you need to understand how some of this works, but we're going to go a little bit deeper than that. On the right-hand side of this screen is all of the outputs for your system. On the left-hand side over here, this is all of the inputs. In between, this is all of the programming logic, all of the various logic blocks within the program. And a VAV is one of the simplest ones, so that's one that I wanted to start with. This lower panel here is where you will also see some of the relationships between each of these blocks. And what I mean by that, I'm going to click on this output again, this damper position. I'm going to come down here to the lower half of my screen, and I'm going to select connections. And what this does is it pulls up the connection for the particular block or the output or whatever that I am clicked on currently. You can see here I am clicked on that damper output. I've got that blue ring around it, and then down here on the bottom it is showing me where that connection is, where it's coming from. You know, that is the very previous thing that is affecting this damper output. This is that logic block. In fact, if I was to click this blue line right here, if I click it here, it's actually going to highlight that logic block for me. And you can see, as there again, this logic block, here's my connection to that damper output. Here are some of the other things that it is doing as far as at writing values out. And we also have on the left-hand side of this screen, there again, the logic block itself is highlighted here in the middle. And again, you can see this blue ring that is all the way around it here. You can also see some of the various states and some of the values that are feeding into this logic block. These values are all coming from various inputs and things like that. On the left-hand side, again, where it's under, it says source, this is the various blocks that are writing values into this logic block here. We're going to take it a little bit deeper than that. What I'm actually going to do on this logic block, I'm going to right-click this logic block, and I'm going to select View Logic. And when I do that, it is going to bring up a lot more information. In fact, we're looking inside of this logic block. Again, remember, what we're looking at is what you see that has this blue line all the way around it here. This is the internals of that logic block. And all of the connections, they're here on the left. You can see mode. You can see here, this is our mode input. It's coming from the state selection, which we will get into in a moment. We can see flow, where it says supply flow set point. Up here is that connection, supply flow set point. On the left-hand side here, these yellow inputs are what we see here on the bottom, okay? These are identical. It is the same when we look at the outputs. All these output tabs here that you see in kind of the turquoise colored blue or whatever you want to call it, this is all of these here. This is all of the outputs for this. Everything on the left is writing a value into this logic block. The logic block is doing its thing through the various control blocks that are in it, such as an AND gate. There is a max value. You know, it's taking the max value of a couple of inputs, and we're feeding a lot of this data into this PID loop. Basically what this is. This is a hybrid activity, which we're not going to take a deep dive into that just yet. But all of these values are being written into this logic block, and all of what it does is calculations and all that kind of stuff, and then it will generate a set of outputs based upon what those inputs are doing. Okay, now there's an oddball one here, and that is this black line. Okay, this black line here, it says OAD or SAD outstate. What is the difference between this turquoise blue and this black line? Remember that I said all of these here on the right hand side are the outputs that are matched to the output of this block. Okay, we see all of that here. And what you can see here on this one, it says the supply AD outstate. You can see it down here as well. The SAD outstate, supply air damper outstate. What this particular block is doing, or what this particular output is doing, is it is writing into the state tables of this system. Your state tables are right here. You can see it right here. When I click into that, I'm bringing up my state tables, and then you can scroll down through these state tables. It takes a little bit to get to where you can understand how to use these, but once you learn how to read your state tables, you can do a lot of troubleshooting within here. If I look at this SAD outstate, I should be able to find it somewhere in here, because that's exactly what we're looking at. And I'm just going to scroll down through here. There's zone, mode, determination, unoccupied sequence, all of this stuff. You know, we have a lot of stuff in here. You can see the lines that are highlighted green. Those are the ones that are currently active as far as the various modes for these individual blocks. If I wanted to find out exactly what is going on with something, for example, the water system, the PID tuning, any of these blocks that I can see. In fact, I'm going to expand this up just a little bit. I'm going to hit this little note here, and it's going to expand this up to where we have a little more room. And you can see here all of these various states that we see. We can see here box flow test. We can see unit enable determination and all of these things here. Whatever that green line is on the left, if you just go straight over to the right, that is going to tell you the state of the block that you see. And again, like this one here, we're in auto mode. It doesn't care. It's got these little stars, which means that it does not care. But you'll notice also that you have the proportional box heating that is all in this column, the supply damper control all in this column, the supply flow set point control all in this column. As you scroll down through here, and I'll just find one that hits, you can see here, well, like this one that says box heating. When I come down here, I can see here, none of these blocks here control anything at this point here. You can see here where it says unoccupied sequencing. It's set down to unoccupied control, not required. Any of these blocks here, it does not have any effect on the supply damper control. I can fall all the way down through here and I get to where I do see it, where here and it says control. And if I was to look at that supply damper control, that is the mode that I would find it in. Okay, that is where your state tables, again, depending on what this is being done, what is being written from logic that you had seen previously into the state tables. Okay, that's where you will see this. Okay, and that's how all of these logic blocks work. That's how when it writes into a state table, this is what it is writing into. Okay, that's all the way down through here. Now let's drop this back down and go back to where we were. You can see here this one, the supply air damper outstate. Let's look at our connections. What is that connection going into? You can see here that supply air damper outstate, even though that it is inside this logic here, it is currently not being used because there's nothing on the right hand side. If we needed to use that value for something and write it into, for it to affect some other type of logic, we could add a connection here and then write that into a state table to affect some type of a logic. Now I'm going to do a separate video, and I've already done, I think, one on that. We're not going to get into it here. But what I want you to see in this is that these are all physical or logical connections on the right hand side, and you're going to see inside here a lot of stuff that is not necessarily used in each of your programs. The way that they set these up, in many cases, you will have a logic block. It's basically an out-of-the-box block, and it will not use, depending on the programming that you're doing, you may not use everything that's in here. And that's exactly what we see with this block inside this. What they try to do, if you remember from the previous video that I did on writing your first program, and if you are trying to learn CCT, just go back, follow along with that program. It's going to give you some of the basics of how to write a VAV program, which is what you're seeing here. That selection tree basically is trying to do a lot of the work for you. And it selects these various logic blocks for a specific purpose, and for this particular purpose, it is to control an outside or a supply air damper on this particular VAV. Again, this logic block, what we are highlighted here in blue, we have all of these inputs from these various blocks here. We have all of these outputs from this logic block being written to various things here. And inside here, we are actually looking at the internal workings of this logic block. That is what we're doing here. And you can see here I have control and then I have logic. If I want to go back to where I was, I simply hit my control tab and then it brings me back into this area here to where I can see all of the various logic blocks that are in this system. Again, we're highlighted here with our supply damper control. We've got that blue ring there. We have the blue ring down here, and you can see the name there. And then we can see all of our various inputs to it. And I can follow it back even further. Supply flow set point control. I'm going to click on that one. Once I click on that one, it is actually going to bring me into another block. And you can see here, this is directly underneath it. This block, again, is what we have highlighted here, everything in blue. You've seen that change just a minute ago. But you'll notice that it's not highlighted purple because of the involvement. There again, it's just a degree of separation. Let's just put it that way. This logic block affects the logic that is in this through its connection. And again, you can see here on the right-hand side, here is our connections from this logic block into this logic block. That's seen right here on this connection. And I've got another video to where I actually take you through setting up these connections on my channel, and I will link it in this video, either in a card or towards the end of this video, to where you can go over and watch that to get a better understanding of how you make these connections and how you change these connections. But remember, these logic blocks, the right hand side is the output, The left-hand side, these two here, the source, that is the input to that logic block. And then everything in the middle here in these two blocks, you have your inputs, and then you have your outputs of that particular logic block. And again, if I wanted to go into a deeper look at this block, I can simply select that View Logic, and it will take me into this logic block. And while we are here, we're going to take a deeper dive into some of the other things that we had seen previously. Do you remember where we were talking about the various states, what we've seen in our state tables? Let's look at this right here. Do you see all of these various points here, or I should say these various names here? In fact, I'm going to blow this up a little bit more. Let me zoom in, just bear with me just for a minute. I just want to zoom in to give you guys a little bit better view. You can see here, supply, airflow, outstate. You see the min, the max, the hold, the control, heating, warm up, and then fail safe. This is the key to understanding your logic as far as your state-based logic. And let's just back up just a minute. I'm going to minimize this lower screen, and I want to show you an exploded view of the upper screen to where we're looking at just the logic. You can kind of see it here, and let me jump back out to where I have it fitting to the window. And again, you can see here the mode. This is what is going to be coming from a state table. But before we get to that, the various modes that you see here on the right-hand side are the various modes that this logic block has. What we are looking at right now is where you see this blue line here. We're looking at an overview of what is selecting the mode that this logic block is in. If I click on any of these, and you've seen when I click there, it changed what's on my screen. If our mode had gone to that value to where it was registering that minimum value, then this is what it would be doing. If our mode switched to minimum, then it's simply going to write these values into these particular points. And it's the same with each of these down through here, okay? You see the one that is highlighted green. This is the one that is currently active. Remember, we are commissioned in to this box. We're looking at this data live. I'm going to select that one. And you can see here, this is what is currently running. This is what that box is currently doing. But as you can see from all of these other points, as I click through here, it changes depending on what state that this logic block is in. Now I'm going to minimize this back up just a minute. And again, you see here, my mode is currently, it says heating. If I select heating here, this green, that is what this logic block is doing. Again, that is coming in from here. When I click back up on this top line, this mode is coming through here, and it is putting this entire logic block into heating mode. Where is this mode being written from? If we look straight over here down on the bottom of our screen and we just trace it over, you can see that it is being written from supply flow set point control block state selection. Okay, so where do I find that? I find that underneath our state tables right here. So remember what we're currently in. We're currently in supply flow set point control. That's what's determining the mode. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my state tables. When I click into my state tables, and let's maximize this to where we can get a little bit better view. And if we scroll through here, we're going to see our various mode. Supply flow set point control. Okay, what we were looking at. What we're looking at here. Okay, you remember that? Supply flow set point control. Let's go back to my state table. That's where we're at right here on the right hand side. Okay, this is the various modes that we're seeing. We're seeing that this is being controlled from our occupied zone sequencing. We have the box heating command that is being written from that. And just in a minute, we're going to actually go back and look at that sequencing output. We're going to look at that. Occupied zone sequencing. Once it is in box heating mode, it is writing that mode value, this value here, to heating. I'm not going to get in how you would change these and set these up in this video again. I'm just trying to give you a better understanding of how to walk your way through CCT. This occupied zone heating, the zone sequencing, I should say, with it currently in box heating mode, has the proportional box heating control in control. It has the supply damper control in control. And then it also has the supply flow set point control in heating. It's writing that into heating, which is then putting it at a heating value, whatever that heating value is. And you can kind of see it here as far as what it's doing. It's flow percent and all that. It's writing those values in based upon what it is being told to do in this logic block. Again, this mode here is putting this in heating, and this mode is being controlled by the occupied zone sequencing. Let's see if we can find that zone sequencing. And I can go back here to control. We have all of this logic here, and again, it takes a bit at times. You just have to learn to feel your way through it. But occupied zone sequencing is in here somewhere, and I may or may not be able to find it very quick, guys, and you may even see it before I do. But that is what is going to be controlling it, and I'm just going to try to find it just to where I can show it to you. That's occupied mode determination. Let's find our, let's see here, state selection. See, we're coming off the state selection. Let's see where it is being written from. Again, we're looking basically at the state tables, all the various state tables here. And the occupied mode sequencing. Let me maximize it. And this is what we run into live at times, guys. So bear with me. Occupied zone sequencing right here on the bottom of the screen. If it will show it to me when I try to minimize, and it's not going to let me, so just bear with me. Let me pull it back up to the larger view, and then I'm going to hit occupied zone sequencing and see if it will let me connect to that. Okay, now that I've clicked into occupied zone sequencing, let's maximize, or I should say bring this back down a little, and here is our zone sequencing block. Again, we have all of these various points that are coming into this block, and then it is writing out to that state table. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to view logic, and here is our logic of this particular block. Again, our block, what we're seeing here is this, what is contained in this blue line. These inputs here, zone temperature, you can see our zone temperature here, our zone temp set point determination, which is going into the cooling set point, which here is our cooling set point, our heating set point, and so on. Again, these are these inputs. These yellow inputs here are what we see here on the left, and then this output here on the right. And do you remember I told you that if it is a black output, it is being written to the state table. So from here, we're writing, it's taking all of this information, it is writing into the state table, which is right here, and that state table is then flipping the mode from the supply flow set point into that heating mode. Okay, I hope that this is not too confusing. It's very possible that it is, but this is something that I wanted to do to try to help you guys get a little bit better understanding of how you walk yourself through this logic, whether it's a heating valve, a cooling valve, a damper, or whatever. It is going to be a similar way of walking through. Okay. It takes a little bit of time to get your head wrapped around some of the stuff in CCT, but once you do, just keep plugging away at it, and once you do, you will be able to do a lot of stuff with it. Again, you're not going to use all the points that are in these logic blocks, and I'm not going to get into doing customization and stuff of it here, but this, again, is just intended to help you to understand it. If you have any questions, leave those down below. I'll try to see if I can go through and answer some of them. I may even try to do some more videos on this if there are some common questions asked. But again, guys, this is just something to try to give you a basic understanding of how you can walk through and better understand this logic. Guys, hope it's helpful to you. Again, check out those other videos if you're wanting to know how to make and break connections and change connections. Also, check out the video on the enumerations and things like that, because you really need to understand how those work as well. I've got an entire playlist on CCT. So go check it out. And guys, if these videos are helpful, I would appreciate it if you would help support the channel by even ordering something through Amazon. You can go through the affiliate links down below, or just whatever. Become a channel member, get early access to some of these videos, or just whatever you would like to do, guys. I really appreciate anything you want to do. But guys, thanks for watching. Check out the rest of the videos on my channel. Like and share this video. Leave me a comment down below. If there's anybody out there that you know that this might be useful to, send it to them. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.